Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life.
Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. This episode is being sponsored by Ritual and Shelter. Are you looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual and Shelter online or in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics such as energy healing, crystal healing, Reiki, chakras, auras, the Akashic Records, shadow work, astrology, and earth-based healing. You can also find herbal teas and tinctures alongside their crystals and oils to help establish a mindful mindset and fluid ambience before meditation, ritual work, and reflection. Ritual and Shelter is dedicated to providing one-on-one, in-depth conversations with customers to help them find the most efficient healing methods and resources that match their unique interest and energy. They offer tarot sessions, Reiki, sound bowl, and crystal healing, and now they are offering witch consultations. Visit ritualshelter.com to book an appointment and bring peace back to the body, mind, and spirit. You can also find them on Instagram at Ritual Shelter Shop, as well as Pinterest at Ritual Plus Shelter. As this podcast goes to air, we are in the last quarter moon cycle, a time to release old emotions, thoughts, and ideas that aren't helpful to your path. Mercury has gone direct, Venus too, and at the collective level, the last few weeks of this month, we hold some really high energy with the potential for major shifting, major changes, major awakening, and growth. We've entered Taurus season, an earth element, helping us to ground all the many shifts and changes that have been going on this past month. It is a time to ask yourself about your soul's journey. It's a time to notice your intuition and, more importantly, to trust it. The answers are deep within, and these cosmic forces and everything that's going on have been helping you to awaken, to open up, to start to go deep within, to sit quietly and find the answers that you are searching for. It is a time to wake up the spirit. Not sure what that means or how to get started? If you want to learn how you can expand your consciousness, go within, build a spiritual practice, schedule a spiritual upgrade call with me, and let's talk about how we can get you started learning the tools and techniques to guide you within to understand more about your abilities and what this awakening means for you. This episode is also being brought to you by Expand. You're invited to join us in person on June 7th or online for Awaken Your Inner Mystic in Atlanta, Georgia. Expand brings knowledge and experience together. Prepare to be surprised and delighted as you immerse yourself in wisdom and hands-on practices and embark on a life-changing journey to transcend spiritual limits, feel deep joy in your life, and awaken that mystic within. I'll be a part of the storytelling panel, sharing my story through my collaboration with Freddie Silva's book, Portals: Energetic Doorways Through Mystical Experiences. Learn from acclaimed teachers like Susan Giesman, leading researcher Freddie Silva, celebrated clairvoyant Tricia McCannon, and others. I'll be sure to put the link in the show notes as well. In today's episode, I have the honor of interviewing Kevin B. Turner, shaman, teacher, and author, about his newest book, The Secret Fire of Alchemy, Kriya Yoga, Kundalini, and Shamanism. In this episode, we talk about alchemy, Kriya Yoga, the history of shamanism, afterlife navigation, the bardo, prana, and how you can upgrade your psychic circuitry. Before we begin, let's take a moment to pause and center and set an intention for where we are right now. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes for a moment. Taking a nice deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, call all your energy into you. Call it in. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, begin to slow down. As I call in the element of fire, clearing the space, the element of air, clearing the mind, the element of water, opening the heart, opening your intuition, letting the emotions flow, calling in the element of earth, grounding, centering. Taking another deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, dropping right into the heart, right into the deepest part of your heart. Feel that connection, your spirit and the greater spirit. Know that you are loved, guided, protected. As we call in our Reiki masters, our teachers that have come before us, calling in the angels to open the heart with joy and love, calling in the crystal beings for amusement and magnification, calling in your higher self right above the crown to receive these messages for you. Taking another deep inhale, breathing up the body. Exhale, slowing down. Taking this moment to notice this great wheel of life. Where I am, we find ourselves in the season of spring, and as I teach in the direction of the east, where the sun rises each and every day, we find that element of fire to inspire us to set those new seeds of intentions. Calling in to the east, the south, the west, and the north, above us, below us, right into the very center. Setting an intention, your path, your life, for where you are right now. See and hear and feel and know this intention. And now as you take that next breath, breathe it in and then exhale out those high vibrations for your intentions, the joy, the love, the peace, the prosperity, setting that energy all around us. Taking another deep inhale and exhale, beginning to bring that breath all the way down, grounding the energy, focusing that third eye, feel the heart opened. And as you're ready, blinking the eyes back open, coming back. So my guest today, Kevin B. Turner, is Director for Asia of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. He is initiated in the Kriya Yoga of Swami Sri Yakshvar and the Kagya School of Tibetan Buddhism, among others. He has lived in Asia for more than 30 years, full of wisdom and a delight to talk to. So let us welcome Kevin to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Terry Ann.
Yes, I'm glad we finally connected a time that was good for us. And congratulations on your next book, The Secret Fire of Alchemy. How exciting. So I do like to start with the question and just ask, what led you to writing this book? You've written others. What led you to this?
Well, it's been a 400-year project across 4 lifetimes at least, maybe more. So I didn't have a choice. So it was unveiled. It was revealed, starting with dreams at age 21 and eventually leading me to Asia to find living alchemical traditions.
So that is a long time. I did gather that from reading it. And I think one of the things that really intrigued me was a lot of this occurred during sleep, dream time.
In the beginning, yes. So I received alchemical initiations in my dream states. And we can call them out-of-body experiences, astral journeys. But these were more than that, because I had astral journeys and OBEs as a child as well. But these were of a completely different nature. These were more transformative. So these revealed eventually a project that has been running across at least 4, probably 5 different lifetimes. But I didn't quite understand that in the beginning. I thought alchemy was some old system for turning lead into gold, but that is a spiritual analogy for turning the leaden soul into a golden soul, which is the same as in Tibetan Buddhism, which is the same as in Kundalini Yoga, which is the same as in Kriya Yoga.
Yeah, it took me several times of reading The Alchemist to understand that whole concept, like the gold, the thing. And I actually am a jeweler, so I work in metal. And so I've seen that transformation. I remember the first time ever seeing silver transform. It was amazing. And it really just like I was hooked at that point. But the whole idea of alchemy now and being able to, I like to call it like transmute energy, changing it from one form. So a very similar term that we're using. Yeah. I have to say that through my dreams, and I've never really given it a definition or like, what is this about? I just accept it. But I do a lot of what I would call channeling of Lemurian energy. And then having had that confirmed, about, I don't know, a little while ago, I've been working with it more and more and just bringing in messages and bringing in messages. So imagine there's a similar energy to this. Maybe I'm astral traveling, I'm asking at night, bring me messages. Maybe it's a similar thing, but that is something that I can relate to with.
Yeah, in shamanism, we don't really use the word energy. We talk about power, meaning spiritual vitality. And power is something different than energy.
Okay.
Power is something that is innately, intrinsically compassionate, ethical, and evolutionary. So it's something that evolves. So it's not about transforming energy, it's about actually evolving the physical body, evolving the soul, the causal soul, the astral soul, the etheric soul, to be able to contain the spiritual vitality of merging with higher and higher levels of consciousness. We can call them deities, angels, archangels, God, the universe, Buddha and consciousness, etc. So that is the development. It is actually spiritual vitality capacity. How much can we hold? So a saintly person who might catalyze healings just by being around them has a very high power capacity. So their consciousness field is not only expanded, but actually filled with power and presence. So it's different than just taking a psychedelic and having a temporary experience of expanded awareness. It's actually a transformation of the soul to be able to contain that state as a permanent state or a long-term state. That's the mystic path, which is more along the lines of Kriya Yoga and alchemy, the spiritual alchemy, anyway. Now, shamanism is more like part-time mystics. They live relatively normal lives. Most shamans are married. They have kids. They have grandkids. They live in their communities. They don't live in caves. They don't live in monasteries or ashrams. They don't separate themselves from society. They usually have day jobs, so they hunt or they fish or they farm or do whatever they do in their tribal setting. And at night, people come to them for healing, for divination, because they've proven that they can do this. They've proven it with results. So it has nothing to do with a belief system. So alchemy is the same. Alchemy doesn't require any belief system. Kriya Yoga doesn't either. It is a practice. So it is Kriya Yoga is similar to shamanism in the sense that it is actual operational methodology for working in spiritual realities.
Spiritual realities. You look at vibration, energy
Sure.
vibration, yeah.
Vibration is the whole of
Yeah.
it.
So
So
how does
res
that differ than energy?
okay, energy is neutral. If I stick my finger in the light socket here, I'd say this energy is bad. If I turn on the lights and read a book, I say it's good. That's neutral. But power, what I'm talking about when I say power, or what Indians would say prana, prana is not just energy. Prana is intrinsically intelligent, intrinsically evolutionary, intrinsically ethical, compassionate, which is a little
Right.
different than just energy. Anyway,
Yeah.
just it's semantics. I mean, different schools have different ideas.
I agree with that. Different schools have different ideas, and I think it gives us a little more, I would like to say, an in-depth look at that. I guess in my modern day world, I do talk about energy, but I know in my past lives and my DNA coding and all, I do have shamanism that runs through me, native to where I live. And I like that you talk about shamans or part-time mystics. I've never heard that. And I know in another lifetime, I've had a lifetime as a mystic. I've written about it, talked about it, had that experience down in Teotihuacana. So it all is very interesting in how it can overlap. and the tools that can help us get there. I think I remember reading about your experience of a shaman, like a whip on your back, and how that had an instantaneous healing for you and brought forth so much more. And then through your studies, and somehow we just get it, right? We
Mhm.
just like, oh, I get it. I wake up, I understand. But then it continues to be a practice. And I totally agree with you too. Lots of times I see the kids doing the drugs and the plant medicine. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, I did that. I'm awake. I'm whatever. But it is a continued practice. It is helping us to expand, right? And open up, especially in today's times. Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you look at some of the terms that you use, especially like Kriya Yoga. I think I mentioned before we hit record, I heard of Kriya breath. I had a spiritual teacher up in Ithaca, New York, and he would try to help me. And it's like, I was really new and really raw, and I couldn't really understand it. I kept practicing the breath, the breathing, but it was very powerful. I've come to find out I was a reverse breather, and so sometimes that can get in the way, but I have learned since through Kundalini classes. And then with Kundalini, we always talk about there's a Kriya for everything in Kundalini. Yeah. How do you look at that?
Well, in Kriya Yoga, we say that God breathed into the soil and created humankind. And that process didn't happen a long time ago. It's still continuing. So it is God that is actually breathing through us. We might like to
Great.
imagine we are separate, but it is actually God who is enlivening us, who is activating us. So we're a little bit like naughty children who think we have no birth mother or birth parents, but we do. And once we achieve the highest levels of Kriya Yoga, then we are at this place, and we know that everything that is being said and every breath that is being taken is simply a manifestation of the unity consciousness. So Kriya Yoga is completely internal. Yes, we start out with breathing and pranayama, and there are even some physical exercises, but there are 6 levels of initiations in Kriya Yoga from the original Sri Yukteswar's ashram, who was Yogananda's guru. So those 6 levels, the first 2 are the only ones that really deal with the microcosmic orbit, which is going up the back of the spine and the front. But that's very important. And in fact, that can even take decades or lifetimes to prepare the body for the type of spiritual vitality or power that can come in the higher Kriya initiations, which are all in here, all in the brain, and eventually leading to the breathless, pulseless state. No breath, no pulse. So this is where St. Paul said, I die daily, which means I enter into Savikalpi Samadhi or Nirvikalpi Samadhi, which is where there's no breath. So humankind does not live by food alone, but by the breath of God. So that is Kriya Yoga. So it's something that it doesn't require any belief. It's really a technology. It's a methodology. And it'll be revived again and again across time. I mean, shamans have also been observed in the breathless, pulseless state. There have been Coptic mystics in Egypt, Persia, and in China as well, practicing Nadon, which is internal alchemy, where they also go into the same state, a breathless, pulseless state. They are merged into the cosmos.
Yeah. It is a practice. It is a method. I think that human humans today, we have trouble slowing down. We can't sit still. I know a lot of people come to me, I can't focus, I can't sit still. And I think that's part of it is that we can't. And we're so much, doing this on the phones and all the, 5G and everything running around us. But there is a practice and we can do it. But like you said, it does take time to cultivate. And finding the proper breath is really important because, again, I struggled with this for years. Yeah,
A teacher always said an ounce of practice is worth tons of theories.
I agree.
Yes. Even though I packed a lot of information in those 300 pages in The Secret Fire of Alchemy, practice is ultimately everything.
Yeah, I'm a teacher of Reiki, and I say the same thing. It's not something you can just read about. You have to practice. You have to have that discipline to sit. And to me, it's one of the easiest forms that teaches about it has that spiritual component. So it pulls you in and it teaches you about that because I think we put so much attention and time out there. And to come in is really important. I remember after my teacher was trying to teach me the Kriya breath, and I kept searching, what is Kriya? What is Kriya? And I found Yogananda's book. He actually gave me his copy of Yogananda's book. And anything in there that said Kriya, I remember looking and searching and just like really going in and to learn about it. So it was quite fascinating. And then I kind of went off that path on Kundalini, which was a little bit different, but yet we learn about that radiance that we have within us and how to open up that channel of light. And I think that's very important. That can help us through these
Well,
practices.
I think something of that is unique in my contribution is simply connecting a Eurasian tradition that goes back to the early alchemists, Rosicrucians, and the Kriya yogis in India, and the Nadan practitioners or inner alchemy practitioners in China. Um, Not very many people have received the higher initiations in Kriya Yoga and are also aware of the alchemical literature in Europe. And so that's probably a kind of a unique contribution that I've made. I didn't create any of it. I just noticed the connections.
I so agree because again, as I was saying, I got caught up in the Kundalini as per Yogi Bhajan, and then so much came out of where he just like made stuff up and the cruelty he showed to women and children. Okay, this is my opinion, and I want to just note that. But for me, it was very disheartening, and so I kind of pushed the whole system away. But yet, I knew within me there was technology that was very important. So I can appreciate what you're saying because you're helping me look that there are deeper roots than where I learned and where a lot of people here in the United States learned. So I think
Yogi,
that's very powerful, and I thank you for that.
yeah, Yogi Bhajan is just one lineage that is really not connected to Kriya Yoga. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, but I think through your book, it helps us to understand that. And I again, like I said, I can really appreciate it. And then your
Well,
whole idea of bringing forward all of this through shamanism and even what you've said, like how we can take this into our everyday world is really important. Yeah,
mhm.
for sure.
The proof is in the pudding. I mean, people go to shamans because shamans get results. So people don't go to shamans just to hear nice stories and hope and believe in some pie in the sky. If shamans don't produce healing, if shamans don't produce divinations that are helpful to people's lives on a practical basis, then people aren't very interested. I mean, people don't expect that if you go to the church or the mosque or the temple. You expect the priest to say something nice and you feel good, and then at the end they say be good and you'll probably be all right after you die and you leave, and that's religion. I mean, it's basically old stories. Religion is born when the last shaman dies because it's not living anymore. It's an old story. Now, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Sometimes it's good. It's even inspiring to listen to old stories. I love to hear about the great saints and sages, the prophets and messiahs of thousands of years ago. But most people think that's all thousands of years ago and that's not now. But it is. For shamans, all those miracles happen now. In fact, Michael Harner asked the question, do they to determine whether someone is a shaman? Do they journey to other worlds in an altered state of consciousness? And number two, do they perform miracles? If it's yes to both, they are a shaman. So all the miracles that happened that we read about thousands of years ago, they're all happening today. They're happening in my courses.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. I just recently sat through a couple of Seder's for Passover and just listening to the story and thinking about my own lineage and past life energies and coming from the Essenes. I know that's part of what I carry. And, so much I threw away or pushed away, the religious part of me because I didn't understand like why. Why do we have these boundaries and went off, and left and lived in New York and did all these studies and came back. I'm living presently in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I was raised to help my parents to end of life. And I've recently embraced some of it, and it's through some of the rites and the rituals and helping through death and dying. You talk about the bardo in your work, the bardo states between lives. Let's talk
Yes.
about that a little bit.
Well, this is afterlife navigation, and this is actually the specialty of the shaman. And in fact, the bardo really comes from the shamanic traditions in India, mixed with shamanic traditions in Tibet. Buddhism and Hinduism came much, much later. Shamanism probably goes back to the dawn of humankind. I mean, we're talking about 100,000 years ago. So in that sense, Hinduism, Buddhism are newborn babies compared to shamanism. And it's really the shamanic aspects of spiritual practice that survived into the practicing religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism that have the power. In fact, Jeffrey Samuel said that the greatest contribution Tibet made was actually their shamanic practices that's within the Buddhist practices there. But they predate Buddhism by tens of thousands of years. Anyway, it's quite a long story. But the
Yeah, it is
Bardo,
quite a long story, and your book is quite detailed and quite deep. I mean, it's not something that, I could just sit there and just read, 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 read. I had to put it down for a little bit. Had to go back. You have beautiful diagrams too.
thank
Like
you.
really old, beautiful diagrams and pictures of old masters and teachers. Very nice. Yeah. How did you come about those?
Well, Bardo is, I mean, just to go back to Bardo, it is afterlife navigation. And this is something that is considered normal in shamanic cultures and something that I teach in my courses, which is we don't have to wait till we die to navigate the afterlife. We can navigate the afterlife right now. In fact, when Plato was on his deathbed, his students asked, what's the best thing we can do in life? And he said, practice dying. And what he meant by that was, at least I believe, what he meant by that is learn how to navigate the afterlife. Now, ultimately, if you navigate it really well, then you don't have to come back. You can
Hmm.
graduate from Earth Hologram Middle School here, and you don't have to come back. But that's a pretty high level. So, in terms of many Tibetan traditions, your whole life is in preparation for death, for when you navigate. And if you can navigate successfully, you don't have to be reborn, at least not in this dimension. And
Interesting.
so I don't want to go through middle school again. So,
I tell you, yeah, I just had my 50th high school reunion, so that question came up a lot. Let me ask you a question. Where does near death fit into this?
well, that near death is the same as shamanic journeying. When you shamanically journey, you move your awareness away from the physical body. You can go into transcendent realms as well as the middle world here, which is a very mixed bag. There's a lot of good and bad mixed here in the middle world. But shamans want to journey in the transcendent worlds. We can call them heaven, paradise, a Garden of Eden, what have you, but the place where everybody gets what they need, where there's no mosquitoes and no taxes. So but here in the middle
Nice.
world is called the pain world, the confused world. It doesn't mean it's all bad. We have chocolate and strawberries and lots of beautiful things here, flowers. I see them there beside you. So the middle world again is a mixed bag. It's just that there's also a lot of suffering here. So the moment we come into this bag of bones, or what the Tibetans call the bag of blood and pus, we are in the pain pleasure cycle, and it's mostly greed and fear that is running our lives from the moment we're born until the moment we die. And this is unfortunate. So this is what meditation is for, is to stop the hamster wheel that we're usually running on. We're not really going anywhere or getting anything. We like to imagine we're going to get that carrot or run away from the tax man, but we're not really going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I so agree with that for sure. Yeah.
In fact, Dr. Harner used to say that shamanic journeying is so easy, it's embarrassing. Because you read these books of fellows meditating 18 hours a day in a cave and getting hemorrhoids and the bleeding hemorrhoids, and they enjoyed the pain all the more and sitting and more in meditation. It's like, wow, that sounds really hard. Whereas with a drum you can go right into those deep states of meditation, journey into transcendent realms, go right into the afterlife realms, even meet ancestors, everything while you're still alive. You don't have to wait till you die. So I teach this in a 2-day course.
Hmm.
Of course, there's more advanced work. We have a 6-week course that goes over 3 years where it's very transformative, where you become more of a professional in that realm. But it is remarkably easy. It's not far away, pie in the sky at all. And shamans have been doing this for tens of thousands of years. And it's probably one of the reasons that religious and political organizations tried to stamp out any kind of spiritual autonomy, because the shamans were autonomous. So the shamans, for example, in Uzbekistan, they used to journey to the upper world regularly. But when Islam came in, they said, no, 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 only Muhammad can journey to the upper world. If you say you journey to the upper world, we will we will silence you. And so suddenly the shamans in Uzbekistan said, who, me? I don't journey to the upper world. And soon the traditions were lost.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
So this is an ethnocentric situation where people, it's so typical of the middle world that everybody wants to say our spirits are better than their spirits.
I would call
Our
it the 3D world. That's what I would call it. But yeah, squashed
3D
in
world.
with that 4D world, right? All right there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and now humanity right now is really fighting. It's really fighting for control, and it's like, really, we can't even control it. Yeah, so there is a lot of that going on. I mean, the whole idea of the dream time to me, I mean, I'm a Toltec student too, and we do a lot of dream time, kind of like meditation, but we go into dream time. But I know for me in my dream sleep time, I've been asking when I go to sleep, bring me those messages. And I guess in some ways that is kind of like an astral travel, but I'm asking, come here. And I've never really thought about it that way. But I think that we can learn so much during that time. But people I know, they're like, no, I made it up. No, it's not true. No, I'm not going to. And so then we get in our head about it and we don't believe or that know that we can actually do this and we can actually learn. I know I've learned so much about the evolution of my soul through using this and just really trusting, like suspend judgment. Like, why do we have to judge it? Yeah.
There was an anthropologist named Edward Tyler who wrote an amazing book in 1871 called, I think he called it Primitive Cultures, which is not very politically correct today, but that was 1871, so it was okay. Anyway, in it, he concluded that the belief in spirits, or actually knowledge of spirits, came first in dreams. I think it also probably came from near-death experiences way back, or intense illnesses where people would go into fever or even into coma, and they would be taught about the spiritual world while they're in that state. But for someone who's naturally sensitive or naturally open to spiritual realities, deep sleep is a great place to start exploring. Now, the interesting thing about the shamanic drum is that the shamanic drum, when it's beat at 4 cycles per second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it can take you to the theta brainwave pattern, which is deeper than normal dreaming, but you can stay awake. And so this is the advantage. So shamans are actually traveling in this area where they know and perceive. They don't need to think about it or to believe it. They know and perceive because they're actually deeper than the dream level. You see, the dream level is still in the personal realm. They're going down to the transpersonal realm. So a shaman can beat a drum, enter a certain state of consciousness, and find out everything about you that you need to know and talk to their helping spirits, or they can go directly there and find out the information. And you'd say, wow, that's amazing. But to them, that's not amazing because from the personal realm, yes, that would be amazing. But from the beyond the personal, from the transpersonal, all that information is available. And they do that as a compassionate act, as a service.
It's fascinating and so innately possible to do that as you go into those states, especially to get out of that beta state and change that consciousness for sure. Yeah,
Yes, even
for
alpha
sure.
is still really in the personal realm. When we have little dreams, they're usually just about our daily life, our little anxieties, our desires, our wishes, you know, our mixture of family, friends, and work, all cobbled together. But when you go transpersonal, those are called the big dreams. Those are the archetypal dreams. People may only have 4 or 5 big dreams in their whole life, but that's where the transpersonal comes in and gives a message. So this is more the Jungian dream analysis level. Freudian dream analysis, Freud was not concerned with the transpersonal. He wanted to figure out what's going on in the personal realm. What's the root of your neuroses? Why have you got your hangups? And we're gonna look at your dreams and see if we can uncover childhood stuff. And that's valuable and valid at that level. But Jung was more of a shaman, and he wanted to look at the transpersonal and how this connected to the larger reality, which is really very shamanic. So I often say Jungian psychology is essentially shamanism under another name.
I've noticed an uptick in people studying Jungian psychology and noticing that it is becoming again more talked
Yeah,
about, more out there. I had a whole
yeah,
conversation just recently with a whole group of people about it. Yeah. But I do think it's fascinating. It is going to help us move through the times that we're in. We are in some struggling times. Now, you're in Asia mostly, but here in the United States, there's a huge, huge disruption going on. And it's easy to go down that rabbit hole and people are just trying to hold on, right? But to me, it's like, no, let's lift the vibration. Let's open up that light because we are coming through a different time. We
Mm.
are. I mean, maybe you could say something about this coming out of the Kali Yuga, like how that's breaking up a lot of stuff that we're moving through.
Well, a very interesting connection is that the Kriya yogis and Sri Yukteswar said that the Kali Yuga ended in 1899. And so we're in the Dwapara, we're coming out of it, which still doesn't mean we still had two world wars after that, but it doesn't matter. We're still, so I'm optimistic. Things are getting better. But very interesting is that the European Rosicrucians also said 1899. They had exactly the same year, which is a correction on some of the traditional Hindu astrologers, which said it's going to be like 400 million years in the Kali Yuga. Well, that's just not correct at all. It's not that long, thankfully.
Hmm.
That would be a long time to be in the Dark Ages.
Had Barbara Handclad on the show. Then you were saying this past March, like we came through a whole nother portal of energy, which was helping to release and end some of that Kali Yuga time.
Surely. I mean, the Kali Yuga lasted quite a while, so
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I'm optimistic. Essentially, I mean, we're it's a long explanation to talk about yugas uh, and the Great Year. Are you familiar with the Great Year, 26,000 years?
I
The
am
the
not. No.
the
Yeah.
the uh,
I will
the
be though.
procession of through the anyway, every 26,000 years, the Earth goes through a full wobble. And it appears that the constellations are moving backwards. That's why this is the age of Aquarius, and the previously it was the age of Pisces, and prior to that it was the age of Taurus, and then Aries. And so you can see that in the age of Taurus, the bull was everywhere. Everything was the bull. I mean, the bull was very important. But then 2,000 years ago, it changed to Pisces, and that's one of the reasons why the symbol for Jesus is the fish. So that was the beginning of the Piscean era. And now we are in the transition into the Aquarian era. It has to do with our relationship to the center of the galaxy. Uh, Depending on how well aligned we are to the center of the galaxy, we are available to resonate with the consciousness of the galaxy. So the Kali Yuga is the place where we are most out of touch with the consciousness of the galaxy, our galaxy. And we're coming out of that. So people are going to be spontaneously waking up, but of course you're going to have lots of resistance. You know, I mean, the oil companies don't want free energy to go out into the public because then they won't make as much money. And so, power, control, market share. I mean, you've got many, many factors going on, but it's also an amazing dance here in the middle world, the confused world, the pain world. And we have all these opportunities to learn because we struggle. I mean, if you don't, you can't build muscles if you don't lift weight. So you've got to have something to push against. That's why this is such a great school to be in, this Earth hologram school, because in the transcendent spheres, everybody gets what they need. And so you don't grow as much. There's a lot of information available, but when we come down here, man, this is the tough commando school here.
Yeah, I agree. But I do agree. And I love that idea of the center of the galaxy. I love that idea, that relationship that we have. I think that's very important. And yeah, I think that even for me, I think some of my deepest work and my deepest growth has come through my dream times and really honoring them instead of pushing them away as they're not important. I think that's really fascinating for me to continue really working in that and trusting the
Mhm.
guidance coming forward. I really think that's important. And then to read your book and how much you went into your dreams as well. And then, of course, one of my favorite, Edgar Casey's Sleeping Prophet, right? He comes from around my areas, right? For sure. But what is
Well,
your overall mission? Like, what's your driving force in bringing this forward right now, especially?
well, in a sense, I mean, I'll be 64 in a few months, and I thought I cannot leave this world without telling this story of what happened and how I pieced all this together. And I think this is the right time for it to come out. Again, this project started in Dresden 400 years ago. And so I've been working on this project. So I have to complete it. I can't leave until it's done. So I still have part two of Secret Fire coming out. I'm working on it right now. But part one is very complete in terms of the alchemical system. There is a universal human spirituality that is not dependent upon any of the ethnocentric histories. We all have the same DNA, we all have the same chromosomes, we all have blood and bones and muscle, and a liver and a heart and kidneys, no matter where we're from. And so we're working with a human body. And so there is a human, universal human spirituality. And that's really the point of my book. And this can be rediscovered and actually practiced and actually lived. I was lucky enough to have very good teachers.
Yeah, and you bring that lineage through, which I really think is important. I know a teacher once told me it's always important to know your teachers and where you're studying and what you're learning and bringing that forward. And I think it's important. I honor my teachers that I've learned from and very grateful, and look for new ones as well all the time. But I really do appreciate that and that you do. I mean, your teachers go way back, and you're bringing it forward at a time I think we need it, and helping us to understand where we are in consciousness right now is great. And I do get calls every day from people waking up and they don't know what's going on. And then yet they'll come and then they don't want to really even trust what's going on here. And they're still just caught in that human mind. Right.
Sure.
And again, all the more reason to learn to use the breath and to learn to slow down is so needed for sure. Yeah.
Well,
So you mentioned your classes. Where can we
oh, yeah.
find you?
Well, I normally teach in Bali, Indonesia, but I sometimes teach in Thailand, Cambodia. I just came from Cambodia and Taiwan. I'm going to Bali next week. I teach continuous Foundation for Shamanic Studies courses there. I also have a 3-year course, which is starting next year. So that'll be the sixth one. That's actually a 6-week course. We meet for 2 weeks once a year to go much deeper, but you need to take the preliminary 2-day courses. But they're offered in the States as well. No need to come all the way to Asia. So Foundation for Shamanic Studies is a worldwide organization. We're kind of the premier university of shamanic studies, you might say. And we're not teaching neo-shamanism, we're teaching something called core shamanism. Core shamanism is the distillation of common shamanic techniques around the world to its essence. And people can then build their own lineage of shamanic practice. The spirits can tell you if they want you to wear feathers in your head, they can tell you what feathers to wear and how many and on what day. So we don't need to borrow that from all these different cultures. One thing I learned in Mongolia was there are 300 different kinds of shamans, and just like rabbits, everyone has their own hop. So shamanism is really a kind of spiritual autonomy. There's no Pope of shamanism, there's no Church of shamanism, there's no holy book of shamanism. It is direct operational methodologies for working in spiritual realities. Belief is totally unnecessary. It's all direct knowledge. So in many cultures, a shaman is known as one who knows, sometimes called the twice born, because they've been in the afterlife realms and they've returned. So they are able to be the intermediaries then between the spiritual world and the common, ordinary reality.
Fascinating. Yeah. Any of this online or it's in person?
There are some online courses in the States. I don't do any online. Everything I do now is in person. But during the pandemic, I did have some online courses. FSS Europe also has some online courses. It's a way to get started. You can sit at home, with your teacup and your pajamas and be comfortable. But I think
Yeah.
ultimately in-person courses are more powerful. So the courses I taught in Cambodia just recently near Angkor Wat, we had 22 people and there was so much power in the room. I mean,
Mm.
it's hard to describe exactly what happened.
Wow. Very intriguing. Yeah. I have your website is shamanism-aza.com.
That's right.
I'll list that in the show notes as well. Well, all quite fascinating. And I really can appreciate just like the depth and what's the word I'm looking for? Just like that origin. I think that's it, that unique origin of bringing this forward without all that other stuff that has to go around it. Just that true teaching, I think. Yeah.
Yes, trying to
Yeah.
cut through all the baggage.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so needed. It really is. There's so many different flavors and everybody's saying there who, yeah,
Well,
definitely.
there's always reformers. I really consider Michael Harner to be something of a reformer, you know. When everything gets so confusing and there's so many lineages and there's so many different schools and so many different religions, somebody has to say, wait a minute, let's get back to ground level reality here. Who's performing the miracles? Okay. This person is performing miracles. That means they know. Okay. These priests over here, they talk a lot, but they're not doing it. So just as Jesus said to the Pharisees, you hypocrites, you don't even believe what you teach, and he's doing the healing. He's doing the compassionate works. And he's walking through town and saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's classic shamanism. And the priests didn't like it, so they got rid of him. I mean, Buddha did the same thing with the Hindu priests. Buddha said, "Hey, you Hindu priests, you're charging money for all this stuff. You're sitting with your fanny soft on the fur, and you don't want to give up your position, but you don't really know." And that's why people left, that in droves to follow Siddhartha Gautama into the forest, just to be in his consciousness field, because that's living.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So, as we go to close the show, I do like to come back and just kind of sum up and leave our listeners with an uplifting thought on how you
Mhm.
do feel working with the Secret Fire of Alchemy can help to empower the spirit right now.
So I wrote this book partially during the pandemic as a gift to the world and as an honoring of my teachers. And I could not let that story die with me. So it had to be written. In terms of alchemical traditions, most of them are gone, they've disappeared. But Kriya Yoga is still one living alchemical tradition. In India, they call it Rasayana, the way of Mercury. In China and East Asia, it's called Nedan or inner alchemy. Has nothing to do with chemicals and that kind of thing. It's all an internal process of upgrading your psychic circuitry to withstand the voltage of merging with cosmic consciousness.
Yeah, upgrading your psychic
Circuitry to handle the
circuitry.
voltage and amperage of cosmic consciousness. If you plug your toaster directly into the nuclear power plant, it'll just melt or explode. So, in the same way, we have to transform our vehicles here to be able to handle that. Now, the saints and sages, or the great Mahasiddhas, those with the great spiritual powers who do these major miracles, they might look like a normal human being, but they're not. They've been upgraded internally many, many, many times. We don't see that on the outside, so they can use the Force, Luke. So Obi-Wan Kenobi presumably has gone through many, many initiations to upgrade that circuitry. In fact, it's often called dismemberment. And the power of a shaman often goes or is ranked by how many dismemberments a shaman has had. And it sounds gruesome, but what it means is that the internal software simply has been taken down and rebuilt. So in that sense, the real saints and sages and highly developed teachers and miracle workers are not normal human beings anymore. They have been changed. That's why Yogananda's body did not decay for 3 weeks after he died. There was nothing, no breath, no pulse, but his flesh was as soft as if he was just sleeping. Well, his body had been completely transformed at a cellular level. That is alchemy. That is the goal of alchemy.
Mm.
It's a big topic.
It is a big topic, and yeah, I just appreciate you. You have certainly empowered me to continue to go a little deeper in that alchemy breath and to continue with that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
great.
thank you. Yeah.
So my life hasn't been a waste.
I don't think your life has been a waste, and you've brought out not just this book, you have others, and I will put all your information in there. Give a shout out to Inner
Sure.
Traditions as well. There we
Well,
go.
this is the
Yeah.
French and this is the English version of Sky Shamans Mongolia, and of course, Secret Fire of Alchemy. It'll be in French as well soon, later this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all the best with your travels and the work that you do. Keep bringing it forward.
Thanks,
And
Erica.
yeah, I truly am very grateful to have had this conversation. Thank you
Well,
so
it sounds
much.
like you're doing good work in this world. Please
Thank
continue.
you. Yeah, I will. I will. I feel that calling and yeah, not easy where I am, but hey, transcend, let go, keep dreaming for sure. Thank you to your spirit. Yes, that secret fire of alchemy lies within. It is an internal process of upgrading your psychic circuitry to withstand the voltage of merging with cosmic consciousness. It is a time to upgrade your spiritual path. It is a time to tune in to that fire within you. Be sure to check out Kevin's work. So powerful, and so many of the teachings he brings forward, and so needed right now for all of us. And if you find yourself awakening and not knowing what that means or what to do or how to deal with it, reach out and schedule a spiritual upgrade call with me, and let's talk about getting you started and learning these skills for your path right now. It is time. Thanks again for listening. I am your host, Terry Ann Hyman, to your spirit. Namaste.